This video is a bit of a supplement to this other one from a bit ago. I've since stumbled upon a few other things that could have gone in that video, and they're cool enough that I thought they were worth just kind of tacking on like this. Firstly, in Trial by Fire, there are a set of spawners for friendly titans that still exist on the map that were presumably part of Respawn's footage gathering for the trailers. They still get assigned on level start, but they just never get referenced anywhere else. My best guess is that they were maybe once a part of this deleted start point called Trailer Drop. Since they're still just left sitting there in the map file, you can access them through script and activate them whenever you want. So for the purposes of this, I just spawned in all of them at once when you start the level. When you do this, it spawns in a big group of duplicate BTs that are all using the Expedition loadout, with visible name tags that just say Titan, and they'll happily join in with the intro fight. You can also see their health for some reason. I think this is just because they're very minimally set up, and Respawn didn't really do anything to them apart from just making them Titans, and this is just what that looks like in game. They can move around in the map freely as long as they have enemies to fight, meaning you can go through the whole doorway section with this army of trailer titans behind you. This is the greatest thing ever made. Unfortunately, they seem to just have very little free will, and once everyone here is dead, the only way you can convince them to go anywhere is to trick them into dashing away from a Titan ability, like a flame trap. Using this method, you can bring them onto the elevator with Sarah, and pushing them far enough into the battlefield afterwards will awaken them and let you fight alongside them in the next section as well. Once they reach the final runway, you can see that the little jumping down animation upon going down this drop does work with them. As long as you're willing to start periodically pushing them towards the objective whenever they run out of enemies to shoot, you can theoretically take these trailer titan spawns all the way to the end of the level, and they don't appear to ever cause any issues aside from just looking a bit weird. If we load into a dev start point from slightly later on in the level, we can see what it looks like when they actually drop in, and I would imagine this is the thing Respawn was actually using them as footage for. But I couldn't actually find anywhere in the trailers that something like this happens. The closest thing I could find was this scene inside the ship, and I think this scene is potentially what the trailer drop start point was, but I don't know how related it is to these spawners. It's definitely very possible that me just using dispatch spawn to get them to appear is not correct to how they would have been, but I have no idea how to get them to do anything else really. When teleporting the player and or BT to a specific spot in the map, the game often uses a string identifier referring to a node that has been placed in the level editor. For example, the place you get teleported to when you load into the highway start point in Abyss 2 can be seen here in Blender, under this name, and this just lets the game use that string rather than having to specify actual coordinates every time. This basically means that by just snooping around in Blender, we can see some teleports in levels that never actually get used. There is one of these in Abyss 2 called Start Player Dev Geospot. The Start Player prefix lines up with what you'd see during teleports to dev start points on this map, which suggests to me that this might be an unused start point. There isn't anywhere this gets used, as I said, but if you force it to happen in script, it puts you way underneath the map, in a spot where you can just fall infinitely, and I have no idea what even is or was here. The name doesn't really give much away other than it had something to do with geometry, and it was probably a testing start point, seeing as it has the dev prefix. To me, this has a very similar vibe to where you get put when you load into the deck effects test in the Ark, since the name for that node also just doesn't line up with what it says it is. So it's possible these were both misplaced in the same kind of way, but I really don't know. It's also kind of funny to me that this puts you in a spot where if you fire your gun, the game just crashes. This one's just really funny to me. There's a disabled line in this file that makes it so that if you load into a level and it runs into a script compile error, it plays the sound from when you kill someone in multiplayer. To be fair, I don't see anything here that suggests this was the actual intent. I feel like they wanted this to happen whenever any level finished loading, but I'm guessing the implementation is just a bit broken in some way, and it doesn't work anymore whenever a level actually properly loads. While in the other video I did solve the mystery of one of the Gauntlet's unused skyboxes, there is a second unused skybox on that level as well that I could never find any info surrounding. It turns out all I needed to do was open the map's Blender file, thank you Smitty, and look at the names of the skybox cameras. The skybox I solved in the last video is called Skybox Cam Glitch, the default one is called Skybox Cam Level, and this final one with the mountains is called Skybox Cam Titanfall. Going off of this, we can kind of glean that this skybox could have potentially been swapped to during the Titan calling in sequence. Although I feel like this would look really weird since a place you've already been in suddenly has completely different surroundings. I feel like it could also just not be that deep and it's just called that because the game is called Titanfall and it was just a prototype skybox or something, but shush. This skybox got very much orbital struck. There are no remnants of it ever being used for anything at all. The world-changing effect, which is already an unused function in and of itself, specifically uses the default skybox when it takes you out of the glitch world, and it never even gets assigned to anything. I did try just assigning this skybox camera to a variable and switching to it in the same way the other skyboxes work, but I'm pretty sure it's not set up correctly, because whenever I did that, the actual mountains would just be put way underneath the map. Without these mountains, it's actually very hard to tell the difference between this and the regular skybox, so to see how it would look, I just forced the Skycam's origin to be a bit lower down, in a position that seemed sensible enough to me.
That's my partner, BT. He's a Vanguard class. Homegrown militia technology.
In my opinion, this looks really ugly. For anyone interested, this is how it would look when worked into the world-changing thing. It's kind of funny to me how many wacky things were tried out for this one segment, and then ultimately they ended up just not really doing anything.
Alright, Rifleman. Sounds like it's about to hit the fan. I'm pulling you out.
Powering down all known essential systems.
This last one is one that I definitely feel like I should have shown in the main video, but I kind of just forgot. I'll take a good look at it now to make up for it. Quite early in the campaign's development, it seems like there were plans to have difficulty affect more than just combat, and the movement sections of levels would also be able to change difficulty by physically adding or removing certain elements. Respawn never continued with this idea, probably mainly because they didn't want to have to build and test 15 billion versions of the same thing every time they made a level. However, they also never fully cut this feature. There is some code related to this in mapspawn.gnut, showing that some entities would have key values associated with them that indicate whether they were a part of easy, normal, or hard mobility difficulty, and the function that initializes this feature would then go through and basically toggle off any applicable thing that isn't associated with the current difficulty. You can't see any of the changes in the final game, I think because instead of getting the difficulty value from an actual thing, it's just always set to normal. You can see here how they thought about having it be a persistent variable, but then they ended up just hard-coding it to 1. This means that we can change this one line to see what the game would look like under each of these difficulties. Unfortunately, despite what it sounds like, the cut content we can see from this is quite limited, because it seems like it was only ever used in a couple levels, with Beacon 2 having the only real extensive use, which is probably a testament to how early it was cut. You see by far the most drastic change if you set the variable to 0 for easy and then load into Beacon 2. The level will have a lot of these additional support platforms during both of the electric wall run sections that aren't normally there, and give you a nice break in between wall runs. There's also quite a huge change with this big bridge at the end of the level that basically lets you skip the fan wall running completely.
That was impressive, pilot.
Setting it to easy on Beacon 3 will completely remove all of these octal switches past the first 2, which definitely does not make it any easier. It could be that there were some plans for some kind of different, easier way to get across, but the explanation I think makes the most sense is that on this difficulty, these walls were supposed to just always be activated and not require any octal input. Setting the variable to anything above normal will instead replace all of these switches with ones that have cooldowns on them, where after a short time of being activated, they go back to being deactivated. This actually is quite a bit harder, to be fair. I did look around a good amount, but I'm pretty sure this is the only instance outside of Beacon 2 where this feature exists. Also, this is the end of the video, bye!